Hello, everyone, and welcome to the All Four Downs podcast. Yeah, it's not Joe, it's me, OV. That's right. Um, Top 25 college football committee got together, and for the first time this season, we got the official top 25 and some questionable uh rankings, certain teams, where they're supposed to be. We're gonna talk about that and more. And good games. I mean, look, forget about the college football playoffs. We got playoff implications happening this Saturday. And we're going to cover those games and much, much more. Joe, I'm bringing you on real quick because I'm scratching my head as to the excuses, the reasons that the college football committee said about why certain teams are positioned. We will get to that. But I want to show you the actual top 25 in comparison with my top 25 at the same time, shall we? And now I know normally I will do it with music and everything else every Sunday. And by all means, really, I was kind of on. I was money. I am money. Okay. So here we go. Top 25. Here we go in comparison. To the left is my top 25. To the right is the college football committee. I have Utah, Toledo, USC, Iowa State, and Kansas State. On the other side, Kansas. I got to give props to that. No problem. I could understand why they put Kansas there because of their victory over Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Tulane, Air Force. All right, Big 12. Good job. All right. I'm a little bit disappointed before the fact that Air Force is 8-0. They've been recognized for the last 30 weeks on my top 25, 2 weeks for the AP and coaches poll, and yet now the committee got them at 25. Tulane, a team that's top in the American conference, and you got them situated there. I'm a little like against it. They're a one-loss team, an undefeated team, going against those two lost teams that eventually they're going to fall down anyway because they're going to play each other.
Yep.
Iowa State, second in the Big 12 and not ranked by the college football committee.
I think it's a little early to have 3 losses. I think that's the problem here. Usually the first team with 3 losses that stays in the poll is LSU.
But in the conference, in the Big 12, they're ranked higher in the conference to Texas. You say if the season was to stop right now, Oklahoma versus Iowa State for the Big 12 championship.
That's bizarre, but that's
bizarre.
It's the way these things are split. It's silly.
Right. It's very silly.
Am I wrong? You look at a lot of these conferences, and one like the East is powerful, and the West is like, yeah, come on, really? One of those? Yeah, I hate that.
All right, here we go. And of course, I had USC between 21 and 25, but yet they have them ranked 20. I don't blame that. I like that. I honestly kind of do. USC still on the run for the Pac-12 championship.
Awful.
It is.
That's not a top 20 team. It's just not.
Liberty, James Madison, Penn State, Air Force, MSU. That's what I have. On the other side, they got Oregon State, Tennessee, Utah, UCLA, and USC. Oregon State losing for the second time badly. I didn't even have them in the top 25. Tennessee didn't have them in the top 25, but they're there. And I kind of understand in a sense. Again, Penn State not mentioned. They're mentioned. They're ranked higher. Scratching my head why they're higher. No problem. UCLA just about average. I understand. Pac-12 does deserve to be recognized this season because they have been kicking ass. They have been beating other conferences before they're beating each other up. So I understand that. Moving on, 11 to 15. I got Penn State, Mizzou, Louisville, LSU, and Notre Dame. On the other side, Louisville, LSU, Oklahoma, Tulane, and Mizzou. All right, I understand. Mizzou about to play Georgia this Saturday. Big help for Georgia. I got it. LSU. We're looking at something, we're looking at things similar. I got it. I'm liking it so far. The only thing I got Notre Dame at 15. Actually, no, I don't have Notre Dame 15. Hold on. Did I get this backwards? I sure did. On the left is the committee. On the right is mine. Oh man, I screwed that one up.
Nice. Okay.
Penn State, rank 11, and you're the third best team in the Big Ten, and you lose to Ohio State. You're about to go against Michigan next week. I just don't like that. I really don't. I mean, because they play nobody. Big Ten has not played. Big Ten is not that strong yet. We're going to cover it on the number one ranking. So here we go. Looking at this, I'm money when it comes to the top 8. Okay. And I got Notre Dame at number 10. They got Ole Miss at number 10. We got that. And Ole Miss, I got it. They only lost to Alabama. And I still tell you, Joe, that loss to Alabama got to be planned. I'm sorry. Ole Miss is so much better than Alabama. And for them to lose by a little to them, I'm just not buying it. But Alabama and Texas, respectively, at 7 and 8, I got that. That's money. Here's more money. Ready? Here's comparisons to my top 10 here. You look at number 5 and number 6, money. Washington and Oregon. We completely agree. Oregon's the best one-loss team, right, in college football. Washington did beat Oregon, so yes, I got it. Now here's the tricky part. I got Michigan at 4, Ohio State at 3, Florida State at 2, and Georgia number 1. The committee feels like Florida State should be number 4. Michigan number 3. Now, I got a problem with that because when you talk about 10th schedule, the eye test, Florida State played top 25 teams. Who's Michigan playing? I don't understand.
They picked a good week to play a lousy Michigan State team. I mean, listen, Ovi, let me tell you this. I agree with everything that you're saying right now. Okay. And this nonsense with Penn State is artificially inflated, ranked much higher than they should be because it bolsters Ohio State and Michigan. And if you're an Ohio State fan and you're watching this, you know it's true. You 100% know it's true.
Watch this. So their excuse for Ohio State number 1 was that Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of the best wide receivers in the country. I agree with that. But don't tell me that because he's the best wide receiver that he's carrying that offense. That look, Georgia had Bowers as the tight end carrying the offense. He is out. He ain't going to be back probably till Thanksgiving weekend. And yet Georgia is still winning. And when the game counts, they're kicking ass.
Georgia's opponent last week was Florida.
Yes.
Florida, if they were to play Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, Washington, or Oregon, they'd probably win, and they'd probably be favored if they're home.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you. Yeah, again, I mean, here's the thing. And, when we first started doing this show, Ovi, I was very anti the SEC. And I was very anti-Alabama and Georgia. And what I've seen over the last few years of doing this show with you is that the talent gap at Georgia and Alabama, and with a lot of the SEC schools, is superior to what you see in the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12. That is the reality of what college football is. So to try to sandwich all these crappy teams from weaker conferences in there, you're not fooling me. You're not fooling me. When push comes to shove, the cream's going to rise to the top, and we know who it's going to be. And it's going to be from the SEC straight up.
Georgia is going to play a gauntlet match for the next 3 weeks. Top rank opponents for the next 3 weeks. Okay. Before they finish their season against Georgia Tech. Florida State beat LSU in week 1. One hell of a game. Okay. They got a little Boston College could have beaten Florida State. It didn't happen. But let's look at it like any other year. for an SEC team like Alabama or Georgia. Georgia almost lost to pretty mediocre to Ball State, and they won, right? Yeah, they were still number one. Alabama flirted a loss against Texas A&M years ago. They remain number one. So when you're looking at this, and I said, look, you put Florida State at number 4, but let's look at this strength of schedule because they boosted Ohio State as the number 1 schedule here, right? How are they number 1 schedule? I have no idea. Who's Youngstown State? Okay, Youngstown State
it's a tiny little school in Ohio, and they're not
right.
good at anything.
Western
Youngstown
Kentucky
actually is best known for its soccer program.
Well, whatever they do, okay, how is that? Now let's look at Georgia. Yeah, they got UT Martin, similar to Youngstown State, but then they go against Ball State, a rivalry game with South Carolina, UAB, legit. They go to Auburn and win. Then that ranked team, which I was a little questionable with that Auburn game, but then they come and answer on the Kentucky, ranked number 20, 51-13, when everybody was like, oh, Kentucky has one of the best defense, and then Georgia crushes them. Okay? Look at their next opponents. Mizzou, ranked, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Okay? Look at Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, okay, if you want to call it that way. And then they go to Rutgers, Michigan State, Minnesota, and then they play at Michigan. How's that a number 1 schedule for Ohio State?
Let me give you one better. Okay, here's the thing. You look at all of those programs, right? You looking at Penn State, looking at Purdue, Maryland, Wisconsin. None of those teams has been good in a decade. Like, plain and simple, the talent gap in the Big 12 and in the ACC, the drop-off from the top teams is insane. And Penn State, as I've said before, is in that weird category. They're way below Ohio State and Michigan. Then the gap between Penn State and everybody else is even worse. But Penn State doesn't stand a chance against Michigan or Ohio State. So the whole thing is nonsense. It's straight up nonsense. Again, I would argue all of those teams would struggle against South Carolina, Auburn, and Kentucky. I don't know if Ohio State, Michigan, or Florida State could beat any of the teams I just mentioned.
And they don't purposely put them in their schedule because they know they will suffer that loss. But that's okay because next year they cannot escape teams like from the Pac-12 moving into the Big Ten because the Big Ten needs those teams to boost up that conference because we cannot always talk about Ohio State and Michigan every single year. Now it's going to be balanced. But for now, okay, and I'm sorry, man, Big Ten is not the elite. I will respect more the Pac-12 than I will do with the Big Ten conference. I really, seriously. But look, here we are. And again, this is only the first rankings. And of course, things will change. What will happen this weekend? Georgia has won over 20 games in a row. Sooner or later, they're going to have to lose a game. Someone has to break the streak. And I totally understand that. Mad respect to Georgia. But I still feel like, look, and Pat McAfee said it. I've said it. And we'll take Ric Flair's words, okay? In order to be the man, you got to beat the man. And show me a team that's going to beat Georgia. Back-to-back championships, they should always stay number 1 until somebody takes them down. And I'm sorry, Ohio State, you did lose to Georgia.
Am I correct in that this happened to Georgia last year as well, that they fell in the ratings despite winning a game in the SEC? The same thing happened.
The same things happen. It's like a boost to Georgia's ego. Be like, oh, 100%. You don't think we're number 1? We're going to show you this weekend why we should be number 1.
This team is going to finish a 3rd straight season undefeated.
They're going to win the championship again.
It's going to happen. I mean, and their schedule is pretty rough, as you mentioned, leading up to the Georgia Tech
Mizzou, Tennessee. I mean, look, we could go visit back that schedule again. Hold on, let me put it up there. again, and you can't sleep on Florida, okay? And because that's a rivalry. It's a rivalry, and I lost my page. Here we go. It's a rivalry. So yeah, winning 43-20, that's worse than what they did last year. Mizzou, Ole Miss, Tennessee, back to back to back, 3 ranked opponents. There's no one in the top 4 that has the same schedule as Georgia. So again, don't tell me that Georgia's schedule is ranked 15th or whatever it is, that percentile that they're using, because their schedule is harder than any of these top 4 teams right here.
Yeah, by the way, Florida State will either lose to Miami or they will lose to Florida.
Now, I will lean more. Don't sleep on Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh got a way of being like the Purdue Boilermakers. They could play spoiler. Miami, not so much. Miami's already banged up. I don't know how Van Dyke is going to be health-wise. North Alabama, another like whatever school that is.
Yeah.
And Florida could make an upset, but they just don't have enough at the end to finish the game. So I do like Florida State winning out. And I think the speed bump will be against Pittsburgh.
Florida State will not win out.
Okay.
And Michigan will not win out.
Michigan's going to lose to Ohio State?
Yes.
Okay. You know what? Okay, so watch this. Let me ask you this. If Michigan will beat Ohio State, you think Ohio State will be out of the top 4?
No.
If Michigan loses, do you think they'll be out of the top 4?
No. No, and that's exactly the way that they position this. They literally set this up. You overinflate Penn State so that it looks like both these teams beat a top 10 team. And then when they face off against each other, well, they're 4, they lost to 2, or they're 3, they lost to 2, however they want to work it out.
So you need Penn State to lose another game besides Michigan, Ohio State, so that way their resume goes down.
Yeah, it would be great.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like it's fugly. Just put it that way. It is very fugly. But
let
hey,
me tell you something. This is a lot like auto racing. I'm not a big auto racing fan. Never been a NASCAR guy, but these teams, they work in teams. And sometimes some of these drivers have no intention of winning the race. My job, I'm number 5 on the team. OV, you're the guy. My job is to make sure you win that goddamn race. That's what Penn State is. They're one of those cars whose job on the team it is to make sure Ohio State plays for a national championship. That's what they're designed for. Everybody understands that now. So they need to make it a little less obvious what they're doing.
Pretty obvious that Coach Franklin is still coaching Penn State, and they have not done anything. They haven't even won a conference championship at best. Yeah.
When was the last time Penn State was any good, to be honest?
Maybe before my time.
I mean, I'm like the 80s, maybe in the mid 80s. I feel like that was the last time Penn State really mattered.
I don't know.
Am I right? This is the last time Penn State had a great season.
1982.
82. There you go.
1986 under Joe Paterno. They won the Sugar Bowl, ranked number 1. And in 1986, they won the Fiesta Bowl. They ended up winning, they were number 1. Other than that, nada. Absolutely nada.
It's been a horrible existence for Penn State for like my entire adult life.
I mean, listen, actually, James Franklin's been 10 seasons with them and only 1 conference title and 8 bowl appearances, no national titles. And again, the last coach to do it was Joe Paterno, and then he left in 2011. And the aftermath on that stuff.
And it wasn't even going well.
And it wasn't even.
Let me tell you something. You have to wonder if Penn State was winning conference championships, would Joey Pa have been ushered out?
Right.
I wonder.
45 years coaching in the same team. That's a long years.
Yeah, it is.
Franklin's trying to break that record. Hey, so check this out. If we had 12 teams in the playoffs, this is how it would look like. And this is based on my top 25. You would have Alabama, Ole Miss. You would have Washington versus LSU. You would have Notre Dame versus Texas, Oregon versus Louisville, and of course the top four would be Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and Florida State. And this is my prediction that Georgia and Oregon will face off in the national championship. And it can still be a possibility depending on what's going on. I still feel like there'll be 4 different conference championships this year, making it to the college football playoffs. All right, here we go.
I like your little scenario there. That would be fun.
Yes. So here's the looks. You ready? Now it's 2 faces there. Here we go. Look at each conference. Forget about the college football playoffs for a second. Let's look at the American Conference. Tulane is leading the way, 4-0. They're 7-1 overall. But there's a 3-way tie between them, SMU, and UTSA. Only Tulane versus UTSA will play November 25th. There is no other combination, so it's interesting to see who's going to be the top 2 teams. And the ACC, Florida State's leading the way. They're 6-0. They might as well just already clinch the ACC for the championship.
It's the only football school in the ACC, for crying out loud. Give me a break.
They beat Virginia Tech 39-17 already. Virginia Tech will now play Louisville this Saturday. Outside looking in, Georgia Tech is outside looking in to get themselves into the conference championship. And of course, they did beat North Carolina. That is totally embarrassing for the Tar Heels. Might as well just say it. They're just a basketball team, right?
It's a basketball school. Louisville, Duke, North Carolina, Georgia Tech. Get out of here with this nonsense. I'll let Louisville pass as kind of a football school. All the rest are basketball programs.
And you look, Florida State 2-0 in AP, 3-0 in the top 25. You know, mad respect to Louisville, but Louisville had that loss, man. It's like, come on, man. You guys do better than that. In the Big 12, and this is something that I told you earlier. Oklahoma and Iowa State are the top 2 teams in that conference. Now, Oklahoma lost to Kansas. Oklahoma defeated Texas. Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State will happen this Saturday. And also this Saturday, Texas versus Kansas State. So there's a lot going on here to break the tiebreakers. But all 5 teams, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Kansas State, all 5 schools, yep, I counted right, are 4-1 in the conference. Only Texas and Oklahoma are tied 7-1, with Oklahoma already being Texas. However, Texas is ranked higher than Oklahoma. Thanks to Kansas.
It doesn't matter because Kansas State is going to upset Texas this week.
We will get there. Yeah. In the Big Ten, check this out. Michigan and Ohio State in the same division.
What
they're
a
both
joke.
5-0. Penn State 4-1. Like I said, they're like the stepchild of the whole entire conference. On the other side, who will win the west side of the Big Ten? Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, even Nebraska is in the mix. So forget the overall record. They're tied 3-2. I'm going to predict that Wisconsin they look like the better teams stat-wise, that they should represent the West.
The 4 teams in the West that you're showing here have a combined record of 16-11, and one of them is going to play in the conference championship. What a joke.
A joke. I might as well see Michigan, Ohio State play again.
Yeah. Come on.
Right? I know. Exactly. Things will change when USC, right, goes over there. I think Oregon's going over there too, right?
Yep.
All right. All right. The Pac-12, talking about those two teams, excuse me. Washington in first place with 5-0. They got a big task coming up this weekend. Also, USC 5-1. Oregon 4-1. And then you have Oregon State, Utah, Arizona. No one's talking about Arizona yet. They've won back-to-back top 25 teams. Okay. Arizona will play 5 straight ranked opponents starting this Saturday. How about that? Okay.
Yeah. And by the time it's all over, they'll no longer be bowl eligible.
So, but Arizona, watch this. They lost to Washington. They lost to USC. They beat Washington State and they beat Oregon State. Now they play UCLA. Okay. Beat UCLA. Man, you got to start talking about Arizona. Like they just came out of nowhere and started, you know what? We just found our rhythm. Now it's time to play. I like that. That Cinderella team in the Pac-12.
Destiny's in their hands, man.
Yes. And the SEC, Georgia will play Mizzou, this Saturday. Alabama plays LSU this Saturday. That leaves Ole Miss out there, right? But Ole Miss does play Georgia. That will be on Veterans Day. And then Alabama versus LSU. I said that already. Yeah, this Saturday. And then also Georgia plays Mizzou this Saturday. I said that already. But the next 3 games, as I stated before, Georgia plays ranked opponents. So I'm interested to see how the committee will see those games and eventually put Georgia back at number 1. Third down. It's college football betting, and it's time to make your picks. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Let's start off with Mizzou versus Georgia. After this week, after today's announcement that Georgia's number 2, Georgia's ranked 16. The spread is 16 points. You might as well just say they'll beat them by 23 points because Georgia will take names. And the last time both teams were ranked in the game, that was October 11th, 2014. Georgia won 34-0. Wow. Should it be the same? Should it be the same?
Yeah, it's a home game. Georgia being disrespected, undefeated, and look, Mizzou that's a good football team. There's no way Georgia covers. Georgia wins this game, I would say, by at least 20.
Georgia wins 10 straight games against Mizzou this Saturday. Kansas State versus Texas. Look, Kansas State they shut out Houston. They took care of business with TCU. Texas Tech, yeah, they lost a close one against Oklahoma State, and they defeated UCF. A good job. Texas, they lost to Oklahoma, but look, BYU, they struggled against Houston, and that's the flip-flop.
Yeah.
The final score was 31-24, yet Kansas State beat them 41-0. You see that?
And then Kansas State is going to win this football game. It's going to be a close one, maybe a last-second field goal, but Kansas State will upset Texas because Texas is, and I've been saying it all year, that is not the 7th best team in the country. It just isn't.
No.
It just isn't. And you're going to figure that out this week again, Kansas State. You'll see.
Kansas State is 3-2 in ranked games. So when both these two teams are ranked in the top 25, Kansas State, they got a little slight edge. What else? Overall, Texas leads the series 13-10. Texas has won 6 straight games. I'm going to lean for Kansas State on this one. Uvers, I don't think he's playing this Saturday. I think he's still nursing his injury. They have a backup quarterback, and they don't want to start Archie Manning in his place. So pretty interesting there. But Texas yet still favored by 4 points, over under 51. I could be safe and say over 51 points.
Could go that route too. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. This is a big rivalry. I am disappointed with Gabriel. That loss should never happen with Kansas.
I told you it would happen. I told you it would happen. Oklahoma. I always want to root for Oklahoma, but I'm not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Every single year, Oklahoma's 6-0, 7-0. Big game coming up, they blow it. Same as Texas. I called it. I said it was going to happen. It's just the way it played out. Bam, and then bam, Oklahoma was done, and just like that. And I think they're going to lose again. I think they're going to lose this game to Oklahoma State.
I like the running game for Oklahoma State. Gordon's outrushes the other opponent. Look, he's over 1,000 yards with 10 rushing touchdowns. They hit hard. If Oklahoma State can stay on the field longer than Oklahoma, they got a good chance. I think 6 points is too big. I'm taking the points for Oklahoma State. I am. And the
I'm
over under
taking the
60
points.
for the over under to be 62 points, it's got to be a close game. I'm
Yeah.
taking Oklahoma State.
I'm taking the points, but Oklahoma State also wins the game outright.
Virginia Tech versus Louisville. Both these teams have one loss. This is playoff implications. If Virginia Tech was to upset Louisville, we're talking about Virginia Tech versus Florida State for the ACC championship. And yeah, they're 4-4 overall right now. But Louisville's favorite 9.5. Looking at comparing to the schedules here, Louisville's hiccup was against Pittsburgh, but yeah, Virginia Tech beat Pittsburgh. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing. If you look at what Louisville's done this year, I think they probably win the game. I will take the 9.5 points and Tech.
Well, they shut down Duke. I mean, they put that noise to rest. It's like, Duke
sucks.
Get out of the top 25.
Duke sucks. Duke should have never been there. Everybody delusionally was like, yeah, Duke's pretty good. No, they're not. Stop it.
I'm going to take Louisville, though. I'll take Louisville 9.5. Look, if you look, they've beaten Notre Dame. They manhandled Boston College. I think they'll do the same with Virginia Tech. I know Virginia Tech is quietly winning games, but being 4-4 was a reason. That's why I'm taking Louisville.
Routed Syracuse last week, and 38
but who's Syracuse,
do it. Oh, I understand that. Yeah. Virginia Tech's got a good football team, and I think Louisville's a fraud.
You said that last time, and you were right. You were right. Kansas versus Iowa State. Interesting game, man. And the reason why is Kansas just went ahead and defeated Oklahoma, but then they went against Oklahoma State and lost, the week before. It's like, I win today, next week I lose. They're going back and forth. They're going to lose again. Iowa State's going to win.
You got Iowa State ranked in like your top 20, right? And they're
in my top 25. Yeah.
And I hate that. But here's the other thing. Every time Kansas cracks the top 25, they lose the next goddamn game. The scenario you explained before in the Big 12 where Iowa State
Big 12 theory
that's why I know Iowa State wins this football game. Also, let me point out, Kansas, it's a basketball school.
Of course.
There you go.
And basketball season started in college. College basketball started already. So
the focus is immediately off of football in Kansas. Nobody cares.
Iowa State is favored by 2.5. I will even push it to 4 points and beat Kansas there. So absolutely. Moving on, Washington versus USC. This is in USC. Washington favored by 3.5. Over under 76 points. I don't see this. Washington was this defensive team that all of a sudden we don't see anymore, right? Oregon 36-33. Stanford, they gave up 33 points against Stanford. Ouch. Is anybody going to help USC even improve that defense, or what's going on? I'll take over 76. I'll gamble and go over 76 points in this game. But can Washington do it? I don't know.
USC is going to pull out a last-second Caleb Williams touchdown. It's going to be like a 51-48 kind of a shootout. I love Washington. I love what Washington's done this year. But and listen, there's a reason the Big 12, the Pac-12 is done after this year. And this is exactly the reason why. You've always got, and it happens at this point in the season, where you've got these teams, right? 8-0, 7-2. Of course, the 7-2 team's going to beat that 8-0 team, and it's going to ruin the Pac-12's chance of having somebody in the college football playoffs, because that's how it always happens. And you know who's going to love that? All the Power Fives. They're going to love the fact.
You know who's going to love that? The Big Ten is going to love that.
As good as the Pac-12's been this year, I said that 4 weeks ago. By the time you get to this conference schedule, everybody will have a couple of losses and everyone will effectively be out.
I'm taking USC in the upset.
Me too.
LSU versus Alabama. LSU won last year, but Nick Saban and the Alabama, they don't lose 2 in a row. They don't get owned by anyone. You beat them the next year. Alabama take names, but I don't know. I'm going for LSU. I'm going to go for LSU.
Listen, I got to tell you, and in my final whistle, I'll make reference to the fact that look, this Alabama team, and the big difference right now between Alabama and Georgia is that, and early on I was concerned, and I told you needed to be a little bit concerned. You were right. Carson Beck figured it out. They haven't figured it out in Tuscaloosa. They have not figured it out. Whether Milrose, we don't know. But long term, doesn't look great. That said, I think Alabama wins this football game. I think it's a close one. I think they pull it out in the end. It's going to give a lot of credence to LSU's a really good football team. They'll be 6-3, 4-2 in the SEC like they usually are. And everybody will want to, keep them right around the top 15 because God forbid. So,
I need LSU to win for Georgia to confirm that they're going to win the SEC championship. How about that? That's right? Not a great scenario on that, but
honestly,
I'll be loving it.
In my head, I'm thinking, yeah, listen, I think if Bama wins this game, they win the West, and these two face off. And I think that's the matchup we deserve.
Deserve will be putting Georgia back at number 1. They deserved it. That's a disrespect they gave to Georgia Bulldogs.
They'll get there this week. Georgia will be back to number 1 after a thorough thumping this week. You'll see.
I know the Keys brothers are happy. I told you. But you know what? That offense has been sloppy. You take the Marvin Harrison Jr. equation out the way, and Ohio State has nothing.
Yes, they're listen. Ohio State's a good football program. They definitely are.
Yeah.
This team is not great. When again, I hear the argument come Georgia, and right, we talked about this 3 weeks ago. Right. I broke this all down. They put like 30 guys in the NFL in the last 2 years. That's why Georgia's not as good.
But you know what, though? Hold on for a second. But the thing is, all the teams been playing the same.
Absolutely. Ohio State's fallen off. I will tell you this right now. I think Michigan's better than Ohio State this year. I think Ohio State's going to beat them head to head because Michigan can't ever get out of their own way. But this Ohio Michigan State
prepared,
team,
though.
Yeah, they'll be fine. I'll tell you right now.
Go ahead.
Ohio State will get slaughtered by Georgia. Slaughtered.
They don't have
3 touchdowns difference. I'm saying slaughtered. It won't be close. And if you think it is, reality check coming after the new year.
UCLA versus Arizona. I'm gonna take UCLA. I think that Arizona, their back-to-back wins. They beat Oregon State. They beat Washington State as well. Yeah, they won by a field goal, but however, their luck is going to run out. I got UCLA. They pulled through.
You're out of your mind. Listen, they played Washington close. They could have beaten Washington. Went to 3 OTs with a very good USC team. They beat, I think, a very good Oregon State team. As you said, they're going to complicate things because they're right in the mix of it. They've got a home game against UCLA. They're going to win the game.
You're looking at UCLA, their rushing defense, and Arizona, they go by their, how you say it? They go by their run game. They're very balanced. But you look at UCLA, they struggle in the passing game. And that's how you beat UCLA. And Arizona's not that type of team yet. And I know they're
UCLA lost to Utah. It's a good football team. They
14-7.
barely got by Washington State. Not a great football team.
But they changed quarterbacks, though.
They lost.
That's a big difference maker.
Fine. They lost to Oregon State. Good football team. They crushed a lousy Stanford team, and they beat a pretty lousy Colorado team, if we're being honest. That does not inspire any confidence from me that they're going into Arizona and winning a football game. I don't see it, and I'm not feeling it.
Well, I'm definitely not going to see it. It's at 10:30 p.m., and I think I'd just rather watch the World Series.
We'll read about it in the morning.
All right, here we go. Last one, Army versus Air Force. And I know this has nothing to do with the college football implications, but I have to say, and I will go and take the 18.5 that they gave in Air Force. Army got shut out by LSU. You don't think that the Army cadets are like angry? Like, listen, they're going to go off all 4 downs against Air Force. And I don't care. They're 2-6.
They're
going to make it close.
Don't forget, they went 8 straight quarters without putting up a single point. And then lost to one of the worst programs in the country in the University of Massachusetts. There's no way Army, and I know you love Army, and this would be their
support. Right,
this would be their Super Bowl, but there's no way Air Force loses this game. Air Force wins this one 31-zip.
If Air Force don't cover, you will not see them in the top 25.
No, of course not.
All right, so check this out. Yeah, as expected, look, the rush is going to be a rushing type of game. Air Force averages 81 yards passing.
I love that.
This is going to be a low score game. I don't think it's going over 32 points. So please do not put your money over 32 points in this game.
I just told you 31-zip in this game.
No, so it's not. Under. Stop 31 it. Zip. Stop it. It's not.
Air Force going to roll on them.
Look, they're going to be fine. This is for the Commander's Cup. If Air Force wins, they will clinch the Commander's Cup. They already beat Navy. They have to beat Army. And if Army wins, then we have to wait until the week before the conference championship to see the Army-Navy game to decide whether or not they're going to steal the show. If there's anything that they need, first of all, Army needs to win this game. They need to win out to be bowl eligible.
Yeah, not happening. Army's gonna have to sit out this bowl season, unfortunately.
It's time for 4th down, the final whistle. And man, thank you, Joe, for your inspiration and everything else you bring to the All 4 Downs podcast. But as always, you have the last word, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it, my friend. Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney snapped yesterday. Sure, it was aimed at some redneck radio caller who armchaired his way into the coach's life. Deserved, some would say. I mean, Dabo's a good guy. Everyone likes him. His story's fascinating. The incredible run the Tigers enjoyed under his leadership was amazing. A dynasty. Dabo called out the bandwagon fans on that call. And let's be honest, you only get bandwagon fans when it's going really, really well. But as I pointed out a couple of weeks ago, it's not going well at all. The dynasty's over. And to be fair, it's over at Alabama too, and it's looking pretty dicey at Ohio State. What happened yesterday was Dabo finally realized it's over. And the sad part is he doesn't realize it ended 2 seasons ago. Swinney can take solace in the fact that Clemson's still one of the best programs in the ACC, and that's kind of saying something. Yes, Coach. The bandwagon fans are departing Death Valley because they can finally see past the shadows. Actually, that's what bandwagon fans do when the ride is over. They get off. These are the folks that let you know when the end is here. They scatter like cockroaches. Cuss you, bandwagon fans. May your hairline be as receding as your loyalty is. Maybe sunny days will return to Death Valley, but it seems much less likely as long as Cade Glubnik is the starting quarterback. Thank you so much for joining us for Obi Moniz. I'm Joe Aguirre. We'll catch you next week for All Four Downs.